With this type of problem, write the following equation in slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form means y equals mx plus b. M being the slope, b being the y-intercept. So basically you need the y by itself. The first step is to move the x to the other side. Because if you want y all by itself, 7x is what's bothering it on the same side. So this 7x needs to move to the other side. If it's a positive 7x here, when I move it, it's going to be a minus 7x. And then I'm going to move it. Now the only thing bothering the y would be that negative 10y. So that negative 10 is what's bothering it. Technically, they're both multiplying. That's why they're right next to each other. In order to get rid of it, I'm going to have to divide by negative 10. So I need to divide every single term here by negative 10 as well. And this cancels out because it equals 1. Y equals negative 60 divided by negative 10. Two negatives makes this a positive 6. Negative 7 divided by negative 10. We're going to make that into a positive, and I'm going to leave it as a fraction. 7 divided by 10. X. So you can write it like this, or you can write it like y equals 7 divided by 10x plus 6, considering that's a positive 6. So the steps, I'm going to write them down. First step was to move the x. And then your second step is to divide by the coefficient of y. Or divide by the number in front of y. Remember, the one in front of x, that's your slope. This is the y-intercept. The next problem. Find the x-intercept of the following linear equation. So, for the x-intercept, I told you, this will not be given to you. This is the one thing you have to memorize. So, for the x-intercept, in order to be able to find it, it equals the opposite of y divided by the slope. Know this. It's very important you put this in your brain. Just memorize it, okay? So, in order to get any of this information, I need to be able to get the slope and the y-intercept. And to be able to do that, I'm going to have to solve for y. So like we said before, first step is to move the x. If this is a positive 48, when I move it, it's going to be a negative 48x. That cancels out. And then we're going to divide by the coefficient of y. So we're going to divide by the number in front of y, which is 12. Divide everything by 12. So I end up with y equals 240 divided by 12. That is 20. Let me do it in purple. So yes, that is 20. I just want to change the color. Negative 48 divided by 12 is minus 4x. 20 minus 4x. And then after this, I can keep it like this. I can write it differently. Just because I don't need to write it differently, I'm not. I know that the one with the x, that's my slope. The one without a variable, that is my y-intercept. But they want the x-intercept. So I'm going to use this equation from the top. So to get the x-intercept, you want to do the opposite of y divided by the slope. So if it's a positive 20, the opposite of a positive 20 is a negative 20 divided by my slope, which is negative 4. Negative 20 divided by negative 4 gives me that my x-intercept is a positive 5. Which inequality is shown in the graph below? I hope that you can see all of this is shaded. So I made it to where you didn't actually have to do any math work because they're already, all of them are solved for y. All you really have to know is your inequality symbols and what each of them do. So this symbol right here is less than. And when you have this symbol, you have a dashed line and you shade below the line. So I'm going to go and check this out. Is this a dashed line? No, it looks pretty solid to me. I don't have anything stopping it there. So I'm going to go to the one that has this less than symbol and I'm going to mark it wrong. The next symbol is greater than. And remember, like I told you, you can make like an ugly G. Less than looks like an L. With greater than, if it doesn't have the equal to, it's not included. So it's also a dashed line. But greater than, it's bigger. So you would be shading on top of the line. Once again, I don't have a dashed line here. It's a solid line. So this one's also wrong. The next one I want to look at is C, where I have less than or equal to. So this equal to is very important because this right here tells me I have a solid line. So this is less than or equal to. And now I know I have a solid line in the graph, which is what I have in this graph. And when it's less than, once again, if it's less than, you're going to be shading below the line. Less than the line, right? So I have this line, it's solid, and they're shading below the line. Top would be on top of it. So my line is a solid line and I'm shading below the line. So my answer is C. What is the zero of the function graphed below? The important thing here is the zero. The zero is another way of me asking you for the x-intercept. That is when the function crosses the x-axis. This is my function right here. And I want to see when it crosses the x-axis. So I'm going to go over to the x-axis. And I can see that the function, it's crossing at 1, 2, 3, 4. At negative 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Negative 4. So where the function crosses the x-axis, that is the 0. That's my x-intercept. Right here. You can write it, or if you wanted to write it as a point, you would write it Remember, for the x-intercept, you know the x, the y will always be 0. Because look, the x is -4. What's the y here? 0. That's it. That's all you have to do for that one. This one. Jenny and Thomas are throwing a party and they brought cupcakes. Jenny and Thomas are important. Jenny brought 10 more cupcakes than Thomas. Then is a turnaround word. Together, they have a total, that means equals in math, of 80 cupcakes. How many cupcakes did Jenny bring? Okay, so I'm going to set this up like Jenny plus Thomas, they brought 80 cupcakes. Okay, and then I'm going to go and use what they told me about Jenny. She brought 10 more cupcakes than Thomas. So you're going to take whatever Thomas has, and I'm going to add 10 to it. Remember, this is turnaround, so Thomas goes first. So I'm going to take whatever Thomas already has, and I'm going to add 10 to it. So this is what Jenny brought. Instead of using Jenny, I'm going to go ahead and just write Thomas, whatever he has, plus 10. And cupcakes in total, you still have whatever Thomas brought. So plus whatever Thomas brought equals 80. This is beginning to be a little too much, so I'm just going to put, there's 2 Thomas, right? That's counted twice. So I'm going to put 2 T for Thomas plus 10 equals 80. I'm assuming you're doing this at home and you have no calculator. So minus 10, 2T equals 80 minus 10 is 70. Divide by 2, and you get that Thomas brought 35 cupcakes. So if Thomas brought 35 cupcakes, how many did Jenny bring? You're going to take 35 and add 15 to it. Okay? So Jenny brought, no, you're going to take 35 and add 10 to it. 10. So Jenny brought 45 cupcakes. And together, you get your total of 80 cupcakes. But the answer in this case is what Jenny brought, which is 45 cupcakes.